Yo poop shoot, I'm back with more stuff. Like I said, I'm gonna have one of these every day or every other day for the next little while because I got so much stuff done over the last couple months of COVID freedom. I guess for me it's freedom because I'm at home, not at work. But for other people, I'm sure it's much different. But everybody got what they got, and that's the way it is, right? So anyways, first up, another book of the Marvel Universe, Spider-Man, Kraven's Last Hunt. As this story starts off, Spider-Man's kind of worked up for a couple of reasons, or Peter Parker, I guess, is worked up for a couple of reasons. First, he's finally disclosed to MJ that he is Spider-Man, and his uncertainty around how she feels about it, if she'll stay with him, if he's put her in danger with that secret, is kind of eating away at him. And the other thing is that another guy he worked with at the Daily Bugle, Ned Leeds, another photographer or journalist or whatever, has recently been killed. He was over in Europe covering a story, and Peter was also over there unofficially on Spider-Man business, and Ned was found murdered in his hotel room, and Peter thinks, oh, this is related to me, to Spider-Man. Here's another person that has died because of their link to me and to Spider-Man. So he's kind of despondent about that and about the MJ thing. When he gets back, after Ned's funeral, he gets some information informing him that Ned Leeds was actually a villain. He was the Hobgoblin who had caused Spider-Man so much problems. So that helps him feel at least a little better about the situation, but it just breeds more uncertainty. Like, can I trust anybody? Is everybody around here wearing a mask and we don't know who is who and who we can trust and who we can't, sort of thing. So he's dealing with all that when all of a sudden Kraven, a guy that was born to Russian royalty, but his family was driven out after the fall of the country many years ago, and he gained sort of somewhat immortality through nefarious means. He's plagued Spider-Man with previous battles, but Spider-Man's always easily bested him. But Kraven has finally come for blood, and he pursues Spider-Man one night through the city streets. It's a rainy night. Spider-Man's not quite himself because he's got all this stuff on his mind, and Kraven does get the drop on him and shoots him with this dart full of a serum that seems as though it kills Peter Parker. Kraven buries him in a plot behind his condo or whatever it is, and Spider-Man is seemingly dead. And in the meantime, Kraven dons the Spider-Man uniform and masquerades around New York as you know, his arch villain, and kind of tarnishes Spider-Man's name with some of the he's fighting for good, I guess, but in a very bad kind of way. So he's starting to tarnish Spider-Man's image, and MJ knows something up. She assumes Peter's probably dead and that isn't the real Spider-Man. And the one guy that Kraven is especially terrorizing is a villain named Vermin, who is this man who was kind of turned into something of a rodent, at least in his mind and some of his features and stuff like that. So, who is also an enemy that Spider-Man has faced before. So, 2 weeks of this goes by, and suddenly Spider-Man wakes up and he realizes, oh, I'm in a coffin buried underground. So he digs himself out, and throughout this whole process of Spider-Man kind of reawakening underground and getting back into action, weakened and stuff like that, there's a lot of introspection into his role as a hero and everything around it, all the bad things that happen because of it, and whether he can go on and stuff like that. And at the same time, there's a lot of introspection as to Kraven's motivations for doing this and the type of man that he is. So in the end, it's kind of this three-way confrontation where Kraven pits Vermin against Spider-Man in this kind of plot to have Spider-Man turn from his ideals and kill Vermin, that sort of thing. So it's kind of this test for Spider-Man as he reawakens and goes after Kraven one last time, and you'll have to read it to see if he succeeds or not, although you could probably guess what happens. Next up, another of the Marvel animated movies that are like the graphic novels come to life. This one, Wolverine Origin. This movie was pretty cool. It's pretty slow paced compared to some of the other ones, but it starts in the sometime in the 1800s on the plains of Alberta, Canada. Woo! And there is a wealthy man named John Howlett who lives on this big estate, and his son James Howlett lives with them. And one day he decides to bring up a young girl from the village below to serve as kind of a help around the estate, and also primarily as a playmate for his son James, who is kind of lonely and stuff like that. So they get on pretty well. Things are going normal, and the only kind of downside to John's life is that he employs a groundskeeper named Logan, who's a real surly, mean-spirited, violent kind of person. And he has a son, also named Logan, who ends up getting in tight with James and Rose. And his name is also, like I said, it's also Logan, but they end up nicknaming him affectionately Dog. So it's James, Rose, and Dog. They're inseparable. They're always adventuring outside, adventuring together. And as time goes by, though, Logan becomes a little more like his father after suffering the many beatings at his hands and just, always witnessing that bad type of behavior. And also at the same time, James starts to suffer this kind of sickness where he's got no energy and he's just always kind of blah and he's weak and he's feeble, sort of thing. And eventually things come to a head one night when there's an argument in the Howlett household between John and his father, who lives there, and Rose escapes all of the yelling and stuff and flees out into the garden in front of the estate. And in the garden, Dog is out there, and he, with his new kind of asshole persona, tries to force himself on Rose, but James sees this happening and kind of defused the situation. But Dog doesn't forget, and soon enough he kills James's beloved puppy. And after that, and James informs his father John, and John's like, okay, that's it, Logan, you and your son you're fired, you're off this property, get out of our life. Logan swears vengeance, and soon enough him and his son, other Logan, sneak into the estate one night with shotguns, and John ends up getting killed. And seeing his father killed at the hands of Logan like that, James goes into this rage, and these bony talons shoot out of his fists, and he ends up killing Logan and slashing Dog across the face. So Dog's got these scars across his face. And so Rose, seeing what has happened and knowing that the two of them are going to be, or at least James is going to be a wanted fugitive for the murder, she gets James on a train out to British Columbia, and the two of them escape a couple provinces over. Or is Alberta next to... Yeah, maybe one province over. And I still don't know. Look at a map and I can tell you, but... Manitoba, Saskatchewan, yeah, next province over. So they escape to British Columbia, and they go to this mining facility and enlist for work there. So Rose ends up helping the guy that runs the mine, Smitty, in the head office, getting everything arranged because it's a downright mess, whereas James goes to work in the mines, but it's a really tough go for him because of his weakened condition and stuff like that. And over time, things become a little strained. James, who everybody knows, they use a fake name for him. He actually calls himself Logan amongst all these people. He becomes friends with Smitty, but over time that relationship becomes strained because Smitty and Rose strike up a relationship, and Logan actually really likes Rose. So there's a bit of tension there, and eventually though, Logan ends up escaping into the wilderness a lot on his own, and he's started to get over his sickness, and he actually starts developing a lot of strength and power and ability, and so he becomes this little ball of muscle that can basically do anything, and that's going to serve him well because he's going to not only have the bully of the mine, this giant-sized chef who seems to have taken a disliking to Logan. He has to deal with this butthole, but then also Dog is on the trail of Rose and James, and he's out for vengeance for what James did to his father and also to his face when he slashed him. So there's going to be this kind of confrontation in the mining town as Rose and Smitty are escaping to start a new life together, and Logan is doing whatever. So it's kind of culminates in this little battle to finish it all off. So it's kind of cool. You always hear that, Wolverine is Canadian, but there's never really been a movie or a movie or a show that's gone back that far to when he's like just a little kid, and to see where everything kind of started. So that was pretty neat to see. Next up, finally got around to watching the Aquaman movie, and if I remember correctly, it wasn't received that very well, which is no surprise because movie critics are complete boobs. But this movie was amazing. The effects were top notch. I thought all the people in it were great. But anyways, the story, it's 1985, I think, at the start of the movie, and a lighthouse keeper in Maine named Thomas Curry notices this strange woman wash up on his shore after a storm one night. And so he brings her into the house, and she's unconscious and wearing this weird suit, and she has a trident, and he's like, oh, this is weird, but I better nurse her back to health. And when she comes to, she freaks out, destroys a bit of his house, but eventually calms down, and he learns that she is actually, what's her name? Atlanta? Something like that. The queen of the undersea city of Atlantis, and she fled because of an arranged marriage that she was not into. So they eventually fall in love and have a son who they name Arthur, and but when he's just an infant, the forces from Atlantis track her down and invade the house and try to take her back by force. She fights them all off, but is like, you know what, I gotta go back. This is just going to keep happening, and it's going to endanger you and our son, so I'll go back and see what I can do, and one day I'll be back. And many years later, she hasn't come back, and the scene flashes to this scene where a Russian sub is under attack from some like high-tech pirates, and the situation is diffused when this long-haired, tall, tattooed dude invades and beats all the pirates senseless, and in the process, of course, the sub is ruined and it's sinking and stuff. And this fellow leaves the leader of the pirates to watch his own father die and drown in this submarine wreck instead of helping the guy get loose and live, and which was the right call in my opinion. But the only problem is this pirate leader is actually the Black Manta, which is awesome because I love that villain. He's such a underused and mysterious villain. I've always wanted to know more about him, so this was a very cool thing to see. And so he saves the Russian cadets, and everything's cool, and we see this man travel back to Maine and go visit his father, who is Thomas Curry. So this person is Arthur Curry, grown up as an adult, and he can take all sorts of punishment. He can cut through the water like butter. He is known to the world as the Aquaman. So after that, he visits his father one night after this adventure, and they're at the bar having a beer, and as they're leaving the bar and Arthur is driving his father back home, another Atlantean emerges from the shoreline, and her name is Mira, and she's like, Arthur, you gotta come to Atlantis and challenge Orm for the rulership of Atlantis, because he's trying to unite all the Atlantean tribes in a bid to wage war on the surface, because he's sick and tired of the land dwellers' attitudes towards the sea, dumping all the garbage and all that nonsense. So he's like, I'm not your king, I'm not a leader, I'm just Aquaman. So he rebuffs her, but as they're driving home, this massive tidal wave is sent all along the eastern coast of the States. It throws all the garbage and the warships back onto the shore, and Arthur's father is almost killed in the incident when their truck is kind of swept under this wave. So Mira shows up and helps Arthur save them, and he's like, Arthur at the end is like, okay, well, if this is gonna keep happening, then yes, I'll do that. So Mira takes him to Atlantis, and they meet with Volko, who is the king's vizier, I don't even know what that word means. Kind of like an aide or an informant, whatever. But this Volko also helped train Aquaman as a young kid to hone his abilities, which Orm doesn't know. So Volko informs Mira and Arthur that the best way to defeat Orm and challenge him for the crown of Atlantis, the king of Atlantis, is to go find the fabled trident of Atlan, which is this fabled trident weapon that no one's ever been able to find. And unfortunately, this secret meeting between the three of them is discovered, and Orm sends his forces to break it up, and they capture Arthur. And while he's being interrogated, he's like, "I challenge you to a duel, Orm." So then Orm's like, "Really? Okay." And so they fight, and Arthur is probably a better overall fighter, but Orm has been living underwater his whole life, and so he knows how to take advantage of this, and he ends up getting the better of Arthur. So Mira, going against everything her people believe in, intervenes and scuttles Arthur away before he can be destroyed, and they barely escape. So then their only course of action at this point is to go on Volko's plan and try and find this fabled trident of Atlan. So this adventure takes them first to the Sahara Desert, and then to Sicily, and eventually to a place in the middle of the sea called the Trench, where these weird monsters live. And as they penetrate the trench deep down, they find this kind of lost world at the core of the earth, where the certain little artifact does indeed lie. And first of all, Arthur's got to find a way to actually gain possession of it, which is a feat in and of itself. And then after he gets it, go back, of course, and stop Orm, who has completed uniting these different tribes against the earth, the land dwellers above, and they're just on the verge of waging this war. So the timing is going to be very tight, and it's a very volatile situation, so to speak. So that's where everything kind of ends in this big undersea kind of battle with land dwellers against sea dwellers, Orm against Aquaman, and it's really a marvel to behold. And I've always heard, when researching certain movies and stuff like that, whether it's animation or real life, working with water is always a very hard thing to do, because of its shifting and kind of see-through kind of nature, right, and the way light goes through it and stuff. And I know movie making has advanced so much over the years, back when things like The Abyss and Leviathan and all those movies that were made, but this thing was just like this grand adventure. All the different people and technology and creatures, the sheer mass of them, and how they had them fighting underwater. Like, they really did a fantastic job with the effects. It just looks so real and so natural, that it's just crazy. And yeah, so I have nothing but fantastic things to say about Aquaman. That's probably been my favorite DC movie since, like, whatever the last Batman series was, which I think was like the Dark Knight ones. So Shazam was also really good though, but yeah, probably a toss up between those two, but also a really good movie, so I highly recommend. Next up, in terms of gaming, I finally finished this game, which I've been working on for a long time, for the Wii U. Batman Arkham City Armored Edition. I don't know what the Armored Edition means. It's probably just got extra stuff, but the story around Arkham City is that there's a new mayor in town of Gotham, Quincy Sharp, I think his name is, and he is tired of all the crime and people escaping, all the criminals escaping, Arkham Asylum and Blackgate Penitentiary and all that stuff. So he's like, you know what? We're just going to build walls around the absolute slums of Gotham City and call it Arkham City. And I don't care what goes on in there. They can all kill each other for all I care. As long as nobody gets out, that's all I care about. The rest of Gotham is safe. All the scum can live in Arkham City. And pulling the strings behind this decision is Dr. Hugo Strange, who has kind of got Quincy Sharp to unravel this plan, and he's also got Quincy to install him as the head honcho of Arkham City, and backing him up, his police force is this kind of security company called Tiger. And so he's kind of ruling Arkham City with an iron fist, but not really. He's like, I don't care what you guys do, you can kill each other, just like Quincy Sharp said, and as long as you don't try and go over or under those walls and escape Arkham City, you can do whatever the hell you want. So Bruce Wayne, knowing this is an issue, gets himself kind of caught and is placed inside Arkham City so he can get kind of the inside story on it all. So it's you trying to see what's going on in Arkham City, rescue as many people as you can, find out how the whole scheme came together, and eventually get to the top and take out Hugo Strange, and kind of stop this tyranny that is unfolding within this kind of crazy, violent, insane place. And along the way, there's a lot. The plot line kind of shifts and changes because there's lots of other villains involved in the process behind Arkham City to various degrees. The main villain after Hugo Strange is the Joker, who is suffering from this blood disease. The Titan that made Bane such a huge that virus or chemical or whatever it is, that made Bane such a monster. Joker has taken it as well, except it's caused a condition with his blood, so he's slowly being poisoned to death. So he's searching for a cure. So at the same, on one hand, you're trying to get to Hugo Strange and end Arkham City, but at the other, Joker has set these kind of challenges for you and these traps for you because he wants you to synthesize somehow a cure for him to save him. So you've got these two kind of directions pulling at you, so you've got to kind of navigate all the pitfalls behind them. And then there's other villains that get in the way, like you face Two-Face, Penguin, Clayface, Dr. Freeze, and then there's other ones that kind of are around but you don't really see. They lay traps for you and stuff, like the Riddler, and then there's also cameos from other people like Killer Croc and stuff like that. So and then you also have allies. Catwoman kind of helps you out along the way. Oracle is always in touch with you, and Robin and Alfred, and they help you along the way. So yeah, it's a really neat game. Lots of different aspects to the gameplay. There's action elements, there's stealth elements, there's like solving and detective elements to the game. But it takes a long time to play the game unless you can sit down and... I could only play it in short bursts because it's one of those games that requires a lot of thinking. I think at this age my brain overheats. So I kind of only did it in short bursts, and it took me a while to complete it. But it is a fantastic game, and it's the second game I've played in the Arkham line. The other one was on the 3DS. It was like Arkham Asylum, or no, Blackgate Origins, something like that. So I think it came early in the series. But now playing this one, I kind of want to play more of them because this game was really fun. Last up, and it's another DC. There's lots of DC in this one, isn't there? 2 Marvels and 3 DCs. It's all comic book stuff. Anyways, Lego DC Supervillains for the Nintendo Switch. We recently finished this off. If you've ever played a Lego game before, you'll know what to expect out of this game. They all vary in their own little ways here and there, but the base objective of them is always the same, right? So in this game, the plot line is that Commissioner Gordon is heading to the prison to talk with Lex Luthor and get him to help him out for a reduced sentence because they've caught this new villain who has this ability to absorb other superheroes or villains' powers, and Gordon wants Lex to kind of study this guy and report to him on how this is possible and what it means and yada yada. But while this kind of prisoner transfer is going on, an escape attempt is engineered by Joker and Harley, and all these villains are set free. I think it's Joker and Harley that do it, but anyways, all these villains escape and go on a rampage, and the Justice League, of course, has to track them all down, and they're in the process of putting them back into jail. But before they can do that, this other team of superheroes from Earth 3, an alternate reality of Earth, show up, and they're called the Justice Syndicate. And they're basically copies of Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Cyborg, all those people, but with slightly different looks and slightly different names. And they actually send the Justice League to another dimension and take up the mantle as the new superheroes in Gotham City and Metropolis and stuff. And they send the Justice League away without anybody knowing it, except Harley and Joker, who see it happen. So, turns out these new superheroes are actually villains in disguise, and they're posing as heroes so that they can get access to everything they need to on Earth and set in set this diabolical plan in motion that will bring them ultimate wealth and power and whatever else they're after. So you actually play this game as the villains, but they're kind of acting as heroes because they are the villains in the city, and they don't want these other guys being the villains. So they're, for a brief turn, they're going to actually be the good guys for once and stop these other villains and hopefully bring back the Justice League so that everything can be set back to the fun, normal way things are. So you just play through the game, all the different missions to play through this plot line, and the gameplay is the same. You break everything in sight, collect as many studs as possible, collect character tokens, vehicle tokens, mini kits and everything, and eventually you're able to purchase all the vehicles and the characters that you unlock, and they all have different powers that can help you solve different puzzles and obtain other stuff, and 100% completion on all the levels and stuff. So the game hubs are pretty expansive, but they're easy to navigate. This game is really easy to get around in the hubs and find everything in the hubs, and I found for the amount of stuff to collect in this game, it actually went by really fast. This is one of the fastest Lego games that we played through, and it didn't seem fast and like there wasn't enough in the game. It seemed just as filled with stuff as all the other Lego games, but I don't know, they just made it easier for you to get everything done, I guess. Maybe the levels were a bit shorter overall and stuff like that, but it really went by in a hurry compared to a lot of the other Lego games that we have played over the years. So very good game. And yeah, that is the latest batch of stuff that I have completed. Well, actually, it's not the latest. It's the fourth latest at this point. And I keep adding to these piles down here. So I will be back tomorrow, hopefully. If not, then Sunday with the next bunch of stuff. Toodles.